universal design seating, and a couple of other things to keep in mind when you're building that space.
CSU is home to many communities, with people often joining in search of a place to be seen and heard. Anisi Lamoureux has been involved in so many of these communities, finding time to give back.
I used to paint a lot. I did a lot of painting for the White House. I did a lot of painting just for a lot of famous people. And now I'm kind of very into psychology and clinical psychology, and that's my big thing right now.
One community that works towards this sense of camaraderie are those living with disabilities on campus. Lamoureux is one student who wants to ensure that those who are a part of the disabled community are recognized, being a part of the community herself.
And I have osteogenesis imperfecta, which is a brittle bone disease. People also call it OI for short. And then that kind of limits me to walking, so I have to use a wheelchair. Had it my whole life, and I used to have a lot of broken bones when I was younger. I think I've had 300 plus broken bones. I think when I was younger, just living with it was much harder. I would go to school and I would be very worried about the activities I could do, or just kind of what the average kid does. So going out to recess on the playground was pretty scary for me. It's really hard for people with disabilities to kind of speak for themselves and kind of ask for what they need, what they want. Simple things like holding the door or pulling out a chair at the table, simple things like that.
The needs of those with disabilities and more accessibility has been a constant topic, with many claiming that some changes are needed.
Our goal is to make adjustments at CSU. Things like the brick sidewalks that are now chipped away is really a focus here. It's just kind of making things smoother, easier, and just having people with disabilities, their lives much easier.
Lamoureux isn't the only one who shares the concerns of the disabled community. CSU student Sammy Trout is also a very present member of the community, with ideas about disability representation.
I actually didn't fully realize I was someone with a disability until very recently. I'm a middle child instead of triplets, and we are all on the autism spectrum in some way, shape, or form. So I think the hardest struggle that I've had here in terms of kind of being within that space is being accepted for my disability, since a lot of my disabilities are more invisible, and if they're physical, they're not as, I'm not a wheelchair user, I'm not someone who uses mobility aids or needs special equipment. It's more, mental learning and then even internal, sort of issues.
Of course, there are many different people who belong to the disabled community, each with their own needs for accessibility.
Disability is a very widely encompassing thing. It is not just folks that have physical disabilities, it's people that have invisible disabilities. Having a disability is the largest marginalized group within the United States, and that's the same way internationally, and it's the same way here. And so I think me in my positions, I've been able to really advocate for those folks and being able to go that we are a much wider community than folks may see at the very beginning. In terms of the access to spaces and education, I think is very limiting. Even within, ASCSU, for example, a lot of their events are really inaccessible, and they just voted to say, no, we don't want to make that a constitutional requirement to make the event accessible. So there's still a lot of progress, but there's still a lot of progress that needs to be made.
While there's a lot to be done in terms of accessibility on campus, there's still been a lot of progress made. Student Alex Kristoff shows that there's a thriving community of support here.
CSU has been a dream school of mine since middle school, and I've just loved the culture, the diversity, and everything that CSU and Fort Collins as a whole has to offer me, and help me better myself for the future.
It's kind of hard for people with disabilities. So I took that as more of a leadership role, especially in the disability club. I'm kind of there for people to ask for what they want. I definitely find a community within the Disability Club. I feel like everybody can be themselves, and that's kind of what the Disability Club is too, just to kind of create a community, and then have a place for people to feel accepted and be themselves.
Overall, the disabled community calls Fort Collins and CSU their home and will keep working to ensure that it's a happy and accessible community for all their members.
I think overall my time here at CSU has been very enlightening to the struggles of a lot of oppressed groups here within the United States and just internationally overall, and the intersectionality of those oppressed groups. And I think one of the big things I highlight that is within disability, and I think there's a lot of conversations that I have with folks that regarding intersectionality and just how we all share in that same level of marginalization.
It's definitely a challenge being overlooked or looked at differently. I don't want to be too cliche about it, instead of being the don't give up part and it only gets better from here, but truthfully it does.
As I've gotten older and I've kind of accepted myself more and my disability more, I've just loved my disability, I guess, and going to conventions for people with disabilities, and kind of talking out and creating the Disability Club for people with disabilities. So yeah, I'm kind of an advocate for people, I guess, with disabilities. We're all different and we're not perfect, and there isn't a picture perfect of what somebody needs to be.